Welcome back to College Hockey Mouth, a College Hockey South series. This is episode 25, and we are getting into the throes of the silly season, which playoffs are coming up. Final matchups have been completed, and the man we're going to talk to in just a moment was right in the thick of that with his team. But first, Mr. Danny Bohm, how are you doing this evening, time of recording?
I'm good. Yeah. Big chilling. Yeah. Stressful times with playoffs coming up. There's some behind the scenes stuff that I'm sure people don't really care about, but a little bit stressful, but exciting at the same time. Played a round of golf over the weekend, Devin. It was actually a little bit before the Super Bowl because I didn't give a rat's ass about the bowl this year, to be honest. I did not care. I was basically done after the halftime show. I had like a good first 8 holes where I probably parred like 3 or 4 of them and just like completely went in the toilet after that. Like I was on pace for like a solid 90 and then it probably finished up between like a 105 and a 110. I didn't count it up because I'm afraid to, but I still have the scorecard. Half decent day for golf. Starting to warm up here in the southeast. Did you watch the Super Bowl at all, Devin? As a Lions fan?
Unfortunately, I did, and my cousin has a Seahawks jersey that she sent me a long, long time ago, and I couldn't find, but it has that 12th man on the back. I couldn't help but at first get the nostalgia feeling of when I was 12 and watching the Seahawks and Patriots play, that crazy one
You
where
were
they had the
12 when that
last second
happened?
interception. I was 12 years old, about maybe going on 13. But this one, it was, yeah, a terrible watch. I didn't enjoy it. We didn't even get the commercials. My friend had the Canadian stream up because he watches on a Canadian router. So we didn't see any of the Super Bowl commercials. I heard they were really not that great anyway. So I don't know if I missed out on a lot. It was just a relaxing weekend on my side of things.
No, you know what? I have to say, there was one commercial that stood out, and it's topical because of what's starting and what happened yesterday. The Budweiser commercial, the Clydesdale with the bald eagle went in the Freebird was absolutely incredible. That was about the only commercial that I like actually enjoyed, and it was awesome. It gave me goosebumps, because got U.S. hockey, men's hockey kicking off tomorrow, and the U.S. gave Canada the belt yesterday, which was just fantastic. Because it wasn't just like a 5-0 game. Like they completely outchanced them and everything. It was beautiful. But yeah, I got the Olympics going on. A little American pride here. Got all the original Team USA from 2026. Little did they know.
Well, in the spirit of the Olympics, we just had to get our own Olympian on. A little bit of a different kind of Olympian, though. He was an all-star goaltender for the Europe trip at the start of 2026, and he is currently the elder statesman for the Alabama Men's Division III team. Please welcome to College Hockey Mouth, Luc Haggitt. Luc, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This one's also been in the works for a while. Danny told me about all your guys' adventures in Europe, and he's got some cool stuff to ask you about as we have with all the people we know went on that trip. But to start things out, tell us a bit about yourself from Spanish Fort, Alabama. What got you into playing hockey, and how were you crazy enough to become a goaltender?
So yeah, no, for me, just growing up, I my dad's from Detroit, and I just watched a whole lot of Red Wings hockey. And then the '08 Stanley Cup, or not the '08 Stanley Cup, but the Wings did win that too. But the '08 Winter Classic versus the Blackhawks, that was just an awesome game at Wrigley Field, and I just watched that, and I looked at my dad. I was like, "Hey, Dad, I want to play hockey." And they let me start skating, and then 2 years went by. I ultimately knew I wanted to be a goalie the whole time. I was a huge Chris Osgood fan. Loved Jimmy Howard. Wear 30 because of Osgood, and I ended up just wanting to play goalie. And then when I got in, I absolutely loved it. They couldn't take me out of the net. So, and I was catcher in baseball too when I played baseball. So I just something about things coming at me, catch them. Just I'm used to it.
Well,
Yeah, you
from
know what?
one Detroit guy to another, and if you give me a second here, Dan, because
Yeah, you're good.
tried and true. I wear the Detroit hat on here. I have the Red Wings sweater. Look, when you grow up and you see those teams succeed, I mean, how do you become a Wings fan? Well, you just mentioned your dad, but how do you go from seeing those Wings teams and then have you ever been to like the Joe, or did you get to go visit any of those venues that were so iconic for the Red Wings growing up?
Yeah, actually, I did. I saw I think 2 or 3 games at the Joe. I know I got to watch the Atlanta Thrashers before they uh they kicked the bucket, sadly. But no, yeah, I've been to the Joe to watch that, and I actually sat on the glass for that game as a little kid. Came back, my hand was just all red from just sitting there pounding on the glass all game. But yeah, no. And then I went back and sat up in the nosebleeds up where it gets rowdy up there. So I got to experience the joke twice and absolutely loved it. Haven't been back for Little Caesars yet, but I'm going to try and get out there next year, hopefully.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I can get behind the Red Wings hockey and the you know what? I actually don't mind, those older teams, all the talent they had. And you know what? Chris Osgood really had like an up and down experience with the Red Wings. He was kind of like he was almost an outcast at times because he didn't have the greatest season sometimes and the fans were down on him, but he would always seem to rise to the occasion when it mattered most, and that's why he's a legend there. Like I'm pretty sure he does broadcasts in Detroit. But I can get behind being a catcher, man. I've got bad knees to this day because of it. So yeah, so Red Wings hockey aside. So talk to us about, growing up in youth hockey, how you got started there on your journey to Alabama.
So I started playing hockey in Wichita, Kansas, and then I played my first couple years of squirts there, and then moved down to Spanish Fort as a peewee, and I had to practice in Pensacola. I went up and tried out for a team in that played out of the Pelham Civic Complex, the Alabama Junior Frozen Tide, and I also tried out for a team that was out of Columbus, Georgia, who plays out of Auburn's rink. And I ended up going with the Junior Frozen Tide. Met a couple CHS legends, Greg Drevny, Dylan.
Mm.
I met Drevny, met both of them, played with Dylan. Then it ended up being a full circle moment coming back to Alabama. Drev's the one that actually called me. I was like, "Hey, come down for our recruit weekend." And I was like, "Take a look." They got me down there during a I think it was Dead Week, and I got on campus, and it was rowdy. It was a party. No one was going to class. It was like 12 in the afternoon, and people are just walking down the streets partying, and I'm like, is this how it always is? And as a 20-year-old freshman, I was like, okay, like this is something I could, I'm fresh. I've been playing suitcasing in the three for a couple years now in Wyoming. I was like, there's a lot of people here, a lot going on, a little bit busier, and I wanted to get in on it. And I'm glad I did end up coming to that recruit skate, and then Trev dragged me out here, and I'm playing full circle back at Alabama.
From our notes, it looked like you were a journeyman in the NA3HL. Read also that you were with a billet family since you were 14. How did those experiences shape you into the player and person you are today?
Yeah, no, when I was 14, I lived with actually a kid that played ACHA at Alabama too, Finn Parkman. Me and him just carpooled back and forth when I was 14, and I lived in New Hampshire for my 15s and 16s. And I think mainly what I've learned is you're going to learn a lot of things from mistakes when you're out on your own. How to do laundry, how to cook, how to just do all sorts of life things. I just had to learn just by trial and error pretty much. And of course the vets when you get to the NA3, and I was 16 or 17 when I first went to the NA3, and just listening to the older guys, bunch of captains that I had there, all of the teams I played on, kind of just what shaped me in the cultures, just by being a part of all of that. It was really something cool that I really excited I got to do, because most kids, they don't leave home until they're 18 going to college. And I just got out a little bit sooner. And I'm glad I did that. I'm glad my parents gave me the opportunity to do that too, because it was truly just special for me, especially now being a senior. Looking back on all of it, it's kind of what we've been doing with, last week we had senior night. So looking back at all of it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I see here you're a student of the Shane Clifford Goalie School, and you've also been an instructor there. So you've been on both sides of it. What have those experiences been like? Being an instructor and also having the experience of being kind of a mentee.
Yeah, no, the dog pound is what we call it. The goalie instructors at the Shane Clifford Goalie School. But yeah, no, I started there just training when I was like 15, and I came back when I was 17 or 18, and kind of was for the younger camps, helping out a little bit, coaching, and then for the elite camps, I was actually participating. Then Cliffy brought me in to be a full time guy, and that's actually what I'm going to be doing after I graduate this year. Is I'm going to go full. coach full time for one of the pads that Shane's got up there in Cranberry, PA. So I'm really looking forward to that. But the summers are awesome. You got a group of guys, up to 12 kids, just crashing in a basement for a week. I got to round up the troops, get them all out. There's a big school bus that picks them up and takes them to the camps. I'm just sitting down there with like a pot and a pan, pretty much have to wake up and get them on the
Yeah, it's
bus
goalie boot
because
camp.
that's
Goalie boot
exactly what it
camp.
is. It's like bus
For people
figuratively and
that,
literally leaves at 8 a.m. So
well,
they got to get going.
this has the writings of GI Joe all over it. Like goaltenders are a special breed, but we say that from all the funky things you guys do. So like, what are like the fun things that you endure at goalie camp and teach guys how to have that kind of mental fortitude you need for the position?
I think just never give up on yourself is probably the one thing, especially during goalie camps. We have a big Russian named Artem Kulikov that will come around and he'll shoot on any random goalie and and he'll just come in and they'll chirp. We'll be going around. He's running the social media with his phone, and then some kid will chirp him. He'll pick up a stick, go 3 for 3. All of them post in, and we're just all looking at him. But no, it's just all like mental fortitude. You got to get back up. You're going to get scored on. We have incredible shooters that like just pretty much donate their time. They get paid, but they come out and shoot and there's sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is really a bad reflection on my goalie coaching because this our shooter's just tearing them up 10 shots straight. I'm like, just try and get in front of one. But yeah, no, yeah, you just gotta, I think, really just get back up and keep going and like sit down in the nitty gritty of the work and have fun while you're working hard. I run this the skating station in the middle pretty much every summer, and I just try and make it fun and have the kids like skating's awful. No one wants to sit there and bag skate. So I try and make it fun, have them get some energy going, yell, whatever I got to do to get the energy going in the middle, cheer each other on, all of it. Just, if a some kid takes an edge and just full on Superman's out onto the ice, tap your sticks, give him a little chirp, and we get on with it. But yeah, no, I love the Shane Clifford goalie school. They're so good to us.
Yeah, goalie's one of those positions where like you almost want to compare it to like a pitcher. It's the loneliest position in the sport, and like there's almost like no forgiveness whatsoever. So you have to be so mentally strong. Hats off to you for being able to do that. No way I'd be able to. But you were able to make an immediate impact when you got to Bama. You became the starter in your freshman year. What was the best and maybe some of the tougher times of having that immediate responsibility?
For me, I kind of had to learn how to be a starter again when I got to Bama. When I was suitcasing in a three, most of my roles were backup. There was a lot of when I got to Wilmer on my first stop in Wilmer, Minnesota. I started there for a little bit, and then null drops and stuff started to come down, and the goalie room got crowded, and I kind of got used to starting again. I came just out of 16s. I started for Cyclones, and then from there, I kind of just took a back seat for you know half a year until I got traded to Gillette, and I kind of sat there until my last game. You know, I think 40 out of 40 or like 49 out of 47, and like ended up starting in playoffs. Got swept, and then COVID knocked out playoffs anyway, so it doesn't matter. But then yeah, no, I had to kind of just sit and wait my time, and then I think that was what prepared me to get to Bama. And then once I got to Bama, I just was so excited Drev put a lot of faith in me. He was like, if you come here, you work hard, I'm going to play you. And it was kind of nice to get that assurance from a coach because a lot of coaches will say, hey, like, if you come along here, if you come here, sign with me, I'll play you, I'll play you, I'll play you. But they never really follow up on that back into the deal. And they just they just want to get you in the building. But I think Drev kept his word to me. And then that's where I was able to find my success was just getting that consistency of knowing, hey, I'm going to play Friday night to start the season. I'm going to play Friday. Nova's got Saturday. And we just kind of did that. And then once we made that final playoff push, he's like, all right, I'm taking the leash off. It's going to be you until there's nothing left. So I think just finding that consistency and starting again was really what helped me get through that freshman year and then propelled me through all 4 years now.
It's got to mean more coming from Drev since he has a professional experience as a goalie, played in the O, and putting that confidence in you immediately to be the starter.
Yeah, no, it meant a lot. Drev's played a ton and all over the place, and he really did. He knew how to manage his goalies and knew how to bring out the most of us. If I didn't have my best game, he'd call on me to have a like in the middle of the game in between intermissions, like, hey, I need more out of you. Come on, shut the door, something. And he kind of challenged me to be a better goalie as well.
Throughout so much of the 10 years in your years at Alabama, you've seen 3 different leagues: CHF, College Hockey Federation, AAU, all the way back to ACHA. Do you have a game or a moment that stands out among all of the teams that you've seen during your time here?
I could probably give you one in each league that's kind of been a unicorn. But one for me was my freshman year, HF Nationals, the 2-2 tie for South Carolina in pool play. Just absolutely turned that tournament on its head. No one expected us to play with South Carolina, and then we tied them, and then we ended up making it out of that group and playing Niagara. But I think just to have that opportunity and like get into that game, it went to OT, and me and the other goalie, we both saved like 45 pucks apiece. It was one of the craziest games I've ever been a part of, and just to have that go to a tie was weird. And then it ended up coming down to goals against in that whole series, and that was a really cool way to advance. But it was probably one of the craziest things I've ever been a part of as a team or hockey in general.
So in that way, you are the reason that your team advanced, no?
I mean, if you want to put it that way, I mean, I'm not gonna say no. I'll take the cookies. But no, I gave up 1 goal to Liberty, and then the Fordham game, I was fully expecting to come in there, and we knew we were going to hopefully beat Fordham. I don't want to say it was a for sure give me game, but like Fordham was down. They got ravaged with injuries at Nationals. They ran through a sickness. They said that they might only be playing with 10 guys, and I was getting ready, just lock in, 10 I'm gonna get maybe 10 to 20 shots, make sure all 10 I get in front of everything and just don't give up a rebound, because in that tournament every goal mattered, especially when we played Liberty in that second game and it was the featured game of the night. There was a couple really tough situations to be in that game, and then to only come out of that game with 1 goal is big for me and my defenseman. That just we locked it down that game. So yeah, it was an interesting week for sure.
It seems like goalies have the memories of elephants. Like I bring up these like stuff that happened from last week's series to some players, and they're like, what did I score something? Cool, I guess. But goalies, it's just like they know every situation. They knew the time on the clock, players on the ice. Yeah. But this season was a little bit more difficult at the start. You guys kind of struggled out of the gate, but you guys are catching on, and it's something that we've noticed. You guys are already locked in for playoffs, and I think it's a matchup that's going to be tough for anybody in the first round. What do you think has been the key for you guys turning this season around?
I think our key is to just stop shooting ourselves in the foot. I think at the start of the year, we we played MTSU 4 times out of the gate. Who knew they were going to be such a tough draw? They came out and just they were red hot off the jump, and we were hurting ourselves by taking 14 penalties a game. And it's like we're spending half the game on the kill. It's we played
Hmm.
MTSU the second game. I remember at their barn, and it was insane because we lost 7-6 and we gave up 5 power play goals. And we can't we couldn't do that anymore. And when we found success in our games, we stopped taking penalties. We keep a level head, don't take retaliation penalties. Good things happen, and we seem to play really well 5-on-5. It's just when you get down to that man down under the man advantage, it's a tough way to come out, especially if you got, you know, like 20 minutes of penalties a night.
Yeah, and Danny alluded to it. 4-2 in your last 6 games after you started 1-8. That's a really impressive bout. And you guys have a chance now at winning a conference title. I want to go back to Europe and that trip that you guys embarked on. You, Rocco Bruno in the net, Kyle Meyer. What was it like being around those two guys? And the team as a whole as you guys went over there.
Rocco and Kyle, those are my guys right there. I love both of them. I enjoyed just being around both of them for that week. You learn so much from just the little time you're around them. You pick up little stuff, you see stuff they do. It's like, okay, you see why these guys are successful, not only just by the way they handle themselves on the ice, but just off the ice. Great people, great humans. Just they kind of it was my first time overseas at all. Kyle's kind of helping me out a little bit, especially in that first game, that thriller. Yeah, no, I definitely leaned on both of them for a little bit of support, a little bit of, wisdom when it came to overseas play, and especially the wider rink. I had definitely had to ask a little bit about that.
Yeah, you were probably in the two wildest periods of that whole trip. The last period against Amiens, where stuff it kind of went haywire. I'm pretty sure like three or four guys got kicked out. But then also in the first game against Rouen, where you were in the third period, but that overtime was nuts. And then you were like a reverse TJ Oshie. You were our goalie going 10 rounds in the shootout. What was that experience? You were thrown into the fire immediately in that game in Rouen.
That Rouen game it's going to end up being one of my like top hockey memories of all time. Just going in, and I was like, we were up 3-2, and I was like, at first I was like, all right, just don't blow it. Just don't blow the lead. That gets tossed out the window 10 minutes in. Kind of had to just battle through. And then we got to the OT, and then they get a penalty, we get a penalty, and it's just like, what is going on right now? And then I was just like, all right, let's just make it to a shootout, and then let's take our chances there. I like our guys. I like me in a shootout, and I felt like we could have got them there with how that game was going. I was hoping it did that instead of anything fluky. But no, that was an awesome game. I'm gonna
And
plug
when you
this in
look
real
back
quick
at
as well.
doing this,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh
My
no, you're
phone's
fine.
at
We'll give you a second.
1%. Perfect. Phone's at
Christ.
1%.
Good luck with that, Gav. That would have been wild. That's an elephant in the room, no pun intended. I had to do it. I had to find something, dude. David said it. I mean, is that we thought this was your house. You don't like just have a giant elephant poster, do you?
Oil painting.
I wish I had a giant elephant oil painting in the background. My phone started to. No, I wish I had a giant elephant. Maybe that's gonna be like I'm gonna ask for that for my graduation gift. Is just an elephant oil painning
That would go hard.
because yes,
That's like the good luck
I
charm.
would.
That's like your personality,
Oh yeah, it would be. It'd be awesome to get one of those. That work? Sweet.
Are you an art guy? Do you like to collect souvenirs and stuff?
So I don't collect art. I collect two things. I collect Funko Pops and I collect trading cards. So those are my two niches for collections. My brother got me into some Funkos, and then I've always collected cards since I was a little kid. I just love collecting football. I collect hockey and baseball too, but mainly now it's just football and hockey.
Yeah, so anyway, Devin, I want to clarify because, we kind of alluded to it vaguely, but Hags was in the net for the shootout against Rouen, and I think it was 10 rounds, and he stopped seven of the guys. And I think after 3 rounds, they started using the same guys over and over again, which was, I guess they were allowed to. We cycled through the whole roster, but they kept putting out the same horses who were nasty, by the way. I think it was like number 8 on their team that was like 6'4" or something. That was pretty good. But yeah, literally TJ Oshie, but in net. So shout out to Hags. He was awesome. He got player of the game. And then we headed to the bar after, had a couple of those enormous like goblets of beer that they had at the rink. It was awesome.
They were huge.
Enormous.
Like they were massive. And you know what I should have done? I should have bought one of them to take home just to have a goblet like that.
Are you calling this a cauldron? Is that what you're trying to say?
It basically was.
Holy cow. When I was in school, we had this drink called the fish bowl, and it was like one of those like little goldfish tanks you would hold someone in or hold a fish in. So that's what I'm picturing when you're saying a goblet here. Good
I
stuff.
mean,
You are 21, by the way, so we're allowed to talk about beer. We're allowed to mention it.
no, if you can't
Yeah.
have a chilly one after the game with the fellas, I mean, what are you doing? That's practically why we were over there.
Did Rocco try and lure you to the nightclubs?
Rocco tried to me and Rocco went out one night and it was a fun time. Rocco can get after it. The nights I wanted to go out and get after it, guys were like, "Oh, we got to travel the next day." I was like, like as Danny knows, I had a very premier sleeping spot on the
I was gonna
bus.
bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had Hotel California is what I like to call it down there. When we loaded all the bags into the bus, I just had kind of a sleeper, me and Chunch down there just, we were just shooting the shit, sitting down there, you know, chilling out, guys being guys down under
Yeah.
the bus,
Just
and it
that.
was it was sweet.
Yeah. So on that, so it was definitely on the bus to Strasbourg, where it was supposed to be 5 hours. It ended up being like 13. Yeah, Hags and Chunch would just disappear for hours at a time. I think it just became a thing. Like, that became your spot.
Yeah, no, I would find a seat, and it was normally next to to Kravis. I just chill next to Kravis and be like, I'm gonna sit here for like 5, 10 minutes. Once this bus gets going downstairs, going to take a nap. We're gonna be on the road for a little bit. Wake me up when we're there.
See, like I thought
Hey,
it was there was a secret compartment like right next to like right behind the stairs that were under the seats. I thought someone was
Mhm.
gone in there. And it was almost like you could sleep in there. Like low-key, I thought about it a few times because of the long bus rides and the fact we were getting up at 5 in the morning with Igor rattling around up there at the wheel. I
Dear.
don't think everyone went in there.
Yeah, no,
so Danny,
they were. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, like, Danny has this thing on the pod we do. It's called Chunchikov Island, and I couldn't get out of my mind the you like burrowing in with Chunchikov and just like hearing about his travels around, that Middle Tennessee group. Was there anything like that, like just you guys, like you're saying, or was there anybody else that was part of this little calamity at the back?
It, I could say it was me. There was a Hags in Chunch Island going on down there.
Basically, yeah.
It looked like an MTSU power play, and there's me, and then there's Chunch right next to me. But no, that's me. Me and him just sat down there. I talked to Chunch a lot during the trip. Hell of a guy, hell of a player. I always sit there. He's screening me. I was talking to him in his ear every single game because you know where to find Chunch. He's right around the blue paint. So
Yeah,
I'm
he
always
got he
chirping
got
with him.
he got thrown out of that last game. It was legendary though. He was I think he did the Hulk Hogan to his ear as he was getting escorted off the ice. It was incredible.
I mean, this has been so much fun to hear about your adventures and being a senior, getting to have an opportunity at a championship. What do you kind of preach to a young Alabama group, and where do you guys anticipate your style of play needing to be to get far and accomplish the goals that you guys want?
Yeah, for us, I think for me this year, it's changed a little bit, just the way I've played and viewed the game, both coming from juniors into college hockey. My perspective shifted a little bit. This year, it's been kind of just enjoy the moment, and that's kind of what I've preached to the guys. You come in, you're a freshman, you think it's great, and then it's gone. All of it's like it went by so incredibly fast. So I think just for them, like, be grounded, stay like the group, like you're never gonna have this group again. Every year that I've had, there's been guys that come in. You got the group coming in, you always have the group coming out. And it makes each and every one of those teams so special to be a part of. And that's just kind of what I've tried to preach to them. Just enjoy it while it's there. Um, because it is, it does go fast.
Okay, Devin, I remember what I was going to ask because you brought up Chunch and it made me think of the songs that you guys had to do. And I remember I remember you and Chunch probably had the two best performances. I don't remember what your song was though. Do you remember what you did?
Mine was "I Want It That Way" by the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually pretty decent. I won't lie.
No, I've had my fair share of rookie idols that I've had to be a part of. So when I heard we were doing a rookie idol, I was like, all right, I'll step up to the plate, get out the way. I don't want Rocco putting my number up on Facebook Marketplace for free tires in the Tuscaloosa area. So I figured I'd get up there and
Yeah.
sing early and set the tone for the whole rookie idol.
Yeah, so Devin, they're basically going down the roster. I think it was in numerical order. So Chunch was one of the last guys to go because he's 89 or 88, something like that. So when Rocco called up Chunch, I sat around the same areas like the MT guys the entire bus rides. JJ was like, "Oh, you got to watch this. Like this is gonna be good." When Chunch got called up there, he did Thunderstruck and absolutely screamed into the microphone.
Thunder!
Absolutely screwed. Yeah, dude, it was incredible. And I think the bus driver was turning his microphone off because he got sick of hearing him yelling into the microphone.
Yeah, there's about
Legendary
20
performance.
Thunders in Thunderstruck. If you're gonna do it, you got to go big. So I'm happy that you did it the right way, and it sounds like you did as well because the Backstreet Boys only have one tone, and it's just their calamity of five people, and you did it in one. Good stuff. Thanks so much for coming on, Luke. What's kind of if you had to give a one sentence pitch to people out there for Alabama hockey M3 that
Um, Definitely come down, take a look at the school, get to know the guys for a week during the recruit skate. Our guys can get after it. It's a family environment. Or not, like all the boys are boys. Like we like all just ate and had a Super Bowl party together. We're always doing stuff, and it's just the boys love each other. Everyone has each other's back down here, and there's no place like Bama. So I would just say, come check it out for yourself.
Awesome.
well, thanks for your time, Luke. What a pleasure, and you're a beauty. Good luck, and we'll see you at playoffs.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Thanks to Luc Haggitt for joining us. An absolute beauty and the leader of an Alabama team that is getting ready for College Hockey South playoffs in now 2 weeks' time. It is right around the corner, and some important games happened this past weekend, especially in the M3 and women's side of things. But our game of the week, South Carolina versus Middle Tennessee. Boy, first time in a long time that we've seen them really go on against an M3 team tough. South Carolina had the winner with 3 power play goals on Friday. Now, Danny, South Carolina, you've credited them all year. Joey Brochu, one of the best coach teams, Drew Dirtoff, a great goaltender. They play one of the most complete games we've seen from them all year.
Yeah, Devin, we were on, traveling back to last season. You, myself, and Charlie Serafian were on the D3 side of things for playoffs, and we got to see South Carolina's entire run through that division. And the way they boxed teams in defensively and kind of overwhelmed them, it looked pretty similar on Friday against Middle Tennessee State. And it was a little bit, it's obviously more impressive here because of how high potent and just like unstoppable Middle Tennessee State has been offensively. And so they took that 3-1 lead and it looked like, here comes another tour de force performance from the South Carolina group. They ended up coughing up the lead, but you know what? Good teams, defending national champion. They found the winner late. And man, that's got to be probably the best win in ACHA M3 so far this year, winning on the road against number one.
Yeah, Middle Tennessee took game 2 7-4, and it was still more of the same. I feel like I heard on the broadcast, and a great job by Penalty Box Radio and all the people involved. Just a 5-man unit, like breakout to forecheck. They have active sticks. They clog lanes. I really think if they go to nationals and try and play the pool play like they did against Middle Tennessee, they're going to be in the conversation. They're going to be there on the last day with a chance to go to the semifinal, because you don't see a lot of teams like this that just stay sound in the defensive zone. You talk about it all the time. Well, we got to be good in the corners. We got to win battles. They do that, and then they back it up and do it again. And I feel like there's not many moments where you feel like they are being outmatched. Really fun game of the week, and I'm so glad that everybody had a chance to view it there. And big shout outs especially to Mason Holmes, who had a really funky goal with about 12 minutes left. South Carolina with Joey Brochu are going to be in the conversation and the split series. We also had South Carolina on the women's side take on Clemson, and the Gamecocks, a really, really exciting Palmetto Cup. I mean, we did not expect this game to be as close as it was, but thanks to a Clemson near comeback complete, it turned out to be a good one.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about two game of the weeks delivering. Just insane. And then they kind of followed a similar formula in terms of, Carolina taking an early lead on the road. They coughed it up, game was tied, and then they had to score a late winner. It was a little bit more dramatic in the Clemson game because they were up 5-1. And man, after a disappointing week at Gasparilla for Nina Molina, you know, she was absolutely dominant. I mean, it was really eye-popping to see the way she played and affected every single shift she was out there. And I think if that's the Nina Molina that shows up in the playoffs, Clemson's going to have a chance to win the entire thing. No doubt in my mind, as we'll cover in the next game they played that weekend. But South Carolina takes the first ever Women's Palmetto Cup. I know that means so much to that team. They've got some girls that have been there since the very beginning, and this is the first time playing Clemson, so um, had to mean so much, and they did it on the road in Clemson's barn. So yeah, what a couple of game of the weeks though, Devin.
And Nina Molina earned one of the 3 stars of the week with that performance, and then some, because they beat Bama 9-4 on the next night with 5 goals from Nina. Celerino also had a goal and 2 assists. A couple of others in there for Clemson, and nice for them to get back on track. They had a really rough Gasparilla showcase. You never want to lose to your rivals in that way, and it's just one of those deals. Like, they're still in the mix, right there with teams that could, make noise. And anybody right now is trying to do whatever they can to compete with Tampa. So that'll be something we follow into playoffs. On the men's side, Clemson took on Alabama. We just talked to the aforementioned Luc Haggitt, was in net for the Tide's win in game 2, 7-4. Clemson took game 1 after the Alabama and Auburn M1/M2 Iron Cup. Will Ralston scored a hat trick in game number 1. Didn't find a score sheet for game 2. And just from the clips that I could see, Alabama, the second game, looked like they woke up, especially late. And I think Clemson has this tendency to start really well, and then they don't really finish. So that's maybe something that you're going to have to watch from, both sides. And the reason I mentioned that is seeing them play FAU earlier this year. I mean, they almost had an incredible comeback against Clemson. So split series there on the men's 3 side. Women's still rolling was Bama versus South Carolina. And Bama had a 8-7 overtime thriller. What is it about the women's games that was just so amped up this week?
No clue. I mean, I think knowing that the playoffs are on the horizon, the desperation seemed to kick up for each of the teams, that we saw in that little round robin of sorts with the Clemson, Bama, South Carolina. But yeah, I mean, it had to be exhausting for South Carolina because South Carolina played that morning against Alabama, 8-7, roller coaster of emotions. Then they went on the road to play Clemson, and the emotions had to be high. So, I'm sure the adrenaline was pumping the first part of that game. But man, I'm sure they slept well after that night because the roller coaster, 8-7, God, and then you go up 5-1 and then almost blow it, but still end up with a win. My God. Yeah, but it's gonna be fun, Devin. This women's playoff scene.
Whoever gets to cover that playoff game, I hope you call South Carolina battle tested, because that's the only way I can think of them at this point after this weekend. And Claire Carson had the overtime winner. Our Gavin Coker, who's editing this episode, wrote in the notes, "The podcast bump is back." Love
It never
to see
left.
there for
Never left,
it
Devin.
never left. I like to see it for Claire Carson because while she's not scoring as much as past years, she's still developing into a real leader on that Alabama team. But the women's side, it never stopped. Tampa played Florida this weekend. It really competitive games. Tampa remains unbeaten, and which is crazy of a stat. Tampa has remained undefeated for each of the last 3 seasons. Just, I mean, Danny, like, what do if you're Florida, like, they competed well, but I mean, what is it about this Tampa team that's just different?
It's just depth, Devin, and also just the experience of it. I mean, so they've lost one game to a CHS opponent in their 3 seasons, and it was in the CHS championship game last year to Alabama. But other than that, they've beaten everybody. beaten everybody they've played. And I think the stat is 29 the regular season in their three. I think Habib Nurmagomedov, if you know who that is, Devin, old Habib, went 29-0 in his MMA career. That's what it made me think of. I mean, they kind of smother you the same way that Habib does. But yeah, this was the one that I was really, really curious to see. I kind of wish there was a stream for this one, because of how good Florida looked at Gasparilla, and Tampa did Tampa things. They were up 5-0 going into the third period. Yeah, that made me scratch my head a little bit because I thought Florida was gonna give them a really good game. Who knows though? It could have been an off day.
I believe Olivia Park played in that game, and if at the time of this recording, which is Wednesday, you watch the Olympics, Italy just had this incredible game with the Swedes and were in it to the going to the thirds, tied at 2. So Tampa wins one of these games 5-2, and I wonder if Olivia Park had something to do with that. And Florida having a competitive one, but congrats to Tampa, number 1 seed into this playoff, and like you mentioned, just undefeated in regular season, just one loss to Alabama in the championship a little bit ago. Tampa, still with the M2 team, was wrapping up some important work before the final regional ranking, and they had the 3-game set with Florida Atlantic M2 at Clearwater Ice Arena. I don't know about you, but I think everybody was expecting Tampa to have their way in this after they dominated FAU in the early part of the regular season at Florida Atlantic. They won all 3 games, 2 of those by large margins. Florida Atlantic, game 1, lost 5-2, and Alex Moeller, Danny Griffin, Jacob Penetrante added 2 goals. It looked like the Tampa we know and saw, but this disqualification list got really long. I don't even know if I can name all the players on here quickly enough. There's like 6 or 7 for FAU. There's what I count 4 for Tampa. Lived up to the hype, at least in the scrappiness of a rivalry like this.
Yeah, the final count, I believe, was 254 combined penalty minutes, which is easily the most. I think there was a game between Alabama and KSU that was up there. Definitely over, I think it was in the 150 range, but 254 is ridiculous. So it's safe to say that rivalry is alive and well. I guess we can say this now because it doesn't take the shine off of our preview because the games are over now. But both of the dirty work for these two teams had already been done at this point. I mean, we'll talk about the regionals, but ultimately, you don't really know if this would have affected that too much. I mean, obviously, seeding. If FAU got swept again, but ultimately, both were on their way to Cincinnati. It was more for me, just in my perspective. I just hope both teams stay healthy because they have some seriously important games coming up. You have regionals, then CHS playoffs, and then after that, potential trip to nationals. So, and that's one thing, game 3, we had some game misconducts on the Tampa side, but also a DQ for Alex Moeller, which is noteworthy because he's going to miss the first game at regionals. They don't have a game scheduled in between until regionals. So as of right now, he's going to miss that first game, which is significant because he's their leading scorer.
Huge. And that's going to be in what we're talking about coming up. Finishing up this weekend, it was Florida Atlantic with a dramatic overtime winner, 4-3 in game 2. And game 3, FAU won 10-4 on the backs of I think it was 6-goal second period, excuse me. Most of those on the power play. Brady Bazier, Jackson Neuendijk, Aaron Lentz, Jason Seafelt had 2 goals each in their names. And I just think right now it's setting up a bloodbath for energy going into regionals. On the M3 side, USF and Tampa wrapped up the battle for the Bay, and USF gets the series with this one. I mean, they swept this weekend 10-4, game number 1. Grant Dietz doing Grant Dietz things. Maxwell Mudge with 2 goals himself. Duham Mall for the score sheet. And game 2 is more the same, 9-3. Much more dispersed scoring. For Joe Rhodes, it's a little bit debated about how they've been able to do what they're doing, Danny. If you're a USF fan, it's not just 2 guys. It's not just their top line. They have found the way to get more depth, and that's just what they need getting ready for nationals.
For sure. And that's what the teams above, and there's not many because they've been in, at the very least, the top 10, most of the time the top 5 in the rankings. The teams above them have depth. It's not just one guy, it's multiple, and that'll be important, And I think the most important thing, though, for them is that man who finished with 40 goals this season, 40 with a 4 and a 0 following it. He's got to stay out of the penalty box. I mean, for Christ's sake, stay out of the box, and you're gonna give the team a chance to win. Um, but shout out to Coach Rhodes. He won Coach of the Year last year, and has done another great job this year.
Now, we talked about USF here. Tampa was right on the cusp of the national picture. I believe they right now sit at number 8. With a loss like this, though, and the next one I'm seeing, they are right now at number 14. Now, that's through February 1st, but there's 2 more rankings left before the final, or one before the final on February 15th, and then March 1st. So if we're reading this right, this game is going to count against Tampa. I really hope they still make it. They've been a really solid team all year, and they looked really good up until this USF series. It'd be a shame to not see them make it, but for conference bias sake, let's hope they squeak in there at the cut line, which is the top 16 go, and there's some auto bids in there from other conferences to keep in mind in men's 3. Also in M3 on the conference side of things, and really important to both sides. We said last week, what is going to be the last thing that makes it? Kennesaw State was there, Vanderbilt, Lynn, Miami. Well, Miami and Lynn had a Donnybrook of a series. I mean, fights all over the place, just madhousing, but it's Lynn who comes out with a stamp on their name. 4-1 and 8-1 wins. Towns Haley, Mark Andre, you name it, they had scoring everywhere. Really good broadcast, by the way, from Sam Gelfand and the Lynn production over there. I think Lynn right now has an argument based on what just happened to Embry-Riddle this weekend.
I think it's still going to be tough, but I mean, they did what they had to. Wanted to go back to our interview with Luc Haggitt, our conversation with him. Got to have the goalie mindset at this point. If he gave up 6 goals, make sure you don't give up a 7th. And for Lynn, you just have to win the games that are left on the schedule. They won them in resounding fashion. Now, whether or not they can squeak in, I think they still have an uphill battle. I think what we have right now, and save for Miami, because I think their position is in trouble. I think what we have right now in the field will probably hold up.
Yeah, and I'm speaking a little bit of what do you call it, optimist, like super optimist. Embry-Riddle is probably still solidified. And what I'm referring to is they dropped a game to the Moccasins, Florida Southern, this weekend. I don't think it would affect them too badly, though, because they did win 8-2 the next night. Now, what we're looking at here is UCF at number 53, Kennesaw State at number 58, tied, or I guess one above Miami at 59. Then it's Vanderbilt below the cut line at 61, and Lynn at 71. This is national ranking. If you've been following us all year, we've been speaking about this list that some teams really don't have control of. I mean, you don't know what it's going to be week to week, Danny. And I credit Lynn for fighting in this game and making something of it. And Mason Mori as well for 2 goals, and a host of others. Fighting Knights, if nothing else, will finish the year with a really good result in the M3 side. And we'll have some more games to preview coming up that are important for that cut line conversation. Let's talk about, just for a moment, the M2 regional bracket, which we got the news on Tuesday. The final teams for the Southeast region announced, and all 3 College Hockey South teams are in that field. That'll play in Cincinnati, as you mentioned. Thumbs up, double thumbs up. Now, Tampa stayed at number 2. 3. Well, I've got 1 and you've got 2. So that means
there we go. We got them covered, all 3 teams.
All 3 covered. I mean, they covered what they had to. Florida really locked it down. Wins over Boston College, wins over Tampa. The Spartans stayed at number 2 despite dropping 3 of their last 4 games, including the Florida Atlantic and those Gators. Now, they're going to play number 15 Georgia on Saturday, February 21st at 9 a.m. Eastern from the Queen City Sportsplex. I mean, we'll get to kind of the previews a little bit in a moment, so I'll just rip through these kind of. But Georgia's a really good team. You cannot sleep on a scrappy Bulldog squad. FAU at number 4 moved up big time. They were kind of around that 8-9 range, and we saw them jump 5 spots. They'll take on the runners-up in the TSCHL, Miami, Ohio, on that Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, same venue. And number 12, Florida, will face Ohio State, who right now is having their best years of program in history at 21-2, 1-0. That's the last game of the day at 6 p.m. Eastern. Danny, we were all a little nervous about Florida, but Is it a sense of relief to at least have all teams with a chance? You have to win 2 games to go to nationals.
Yeah, all you got to do is get in the dance, right? Hockey's a weird sport. More than probably, I think maybe baseball is another one where it's just like you just got to get in, and crazy things happen. It's one game, but you know what? I don't even think of any of these teams as underdogs, especially Florida, considering how they played this semester. I think their ranking's a little deceiving. I won't lie to you. I don't know much about Ohio State as a team. If they're 21-2-1, though, I would consider them a pretty decent squad. They're going to be super confident, and they've won 21 of 24 games. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm excited to see how everything pans out. Everyone's got a chance, though.
And all you need is a little bit of hope. Interesting enough, it's an all TSCHL and College Hockey South matchups there. We'll break it down more in next week's episode with the preview officially. Put the Nucks
Put your
up,
Dukes
man.
up.
It's
TCHL or whatever it is.
You need it because they are a really good conference. They've produced the last couple of national champions in M2. It's arguably one of the hardest trophies to win among the 5 in ACH, let alone get through a regional. But when you see this next Friday, we'll have that for you the day before this all gets underway. Mentioned last week the women's field is set. It's Tampa, Florida, USF from the south, Alabama, South Carolina, Clemson, Auburn, and Georgia from the north. Women's division at this point jockeying for position. Go ahead. Yeah, this is breaking stuff. Danny, give us all the first round games that are going to happen at playoffs.
Okay, so now we can talk about the officially set, locked in matchups on the women's side. Starting off with the number 1 seed Tampa Spartans playing Georgia, the 8 seed. Then on the same side of the bracket, the 4 seed Florida, first year, against the 5 seed Clemson, first year, which would be a rematch from Gasparilla a few weeks ago. Then 3 versus 6 matchup, South Carolina against South Florida. Very interesting. A lot of offense, I would presume. And then, Devin. Wow. It's almost like we wrote this into the script. 2 versus 7, Alabama versus Auburn. I think they might be rivals. I don't know. I can't confirm this. Maybe we should have asked Tags, but I think they're rivals. And that wraps up the first round matchups. Some interesting ones. Yeah, but hey, we got first round matchups, at least for one of our divisions. I'm excited. Let's go. Playoffs. I'm looking at the playoffs logo, and it's just making me all warm in the chest because I know it's around the corner.
But we can save it for the playoff preview, but I'll just say right off the bat, I want to see a Florida and Clemson game go the distance. Florida came out of nowhere this year. We were like, well, they're a new program, relatively speaking, and you always want to see them do well, but you're not expecting it. And they have already said, no, like, we're going to try our best to get to the end of this. We're going to be one of the teams that you're looking at. And I think Clemson had a bad taste in their mouth in the last few weeks. And I feel like Nina Molina wants to explode for more. Nina Molina, Marissa Bonilla, somebody from the pod's got to get the edge. I'm just saying for now, that's what I'm looking forward to. So cool, though. We have our first playoff field set. That makes the scheduling a lot easier for Danny and I behind the scenes, which is, trust me, you don't want to know. There's a lot going on, but we'll find a way to get there. In M3, we still have 4 spots technically open, but we'll find out the X's and O's and the solidification of that field very soon. And we mentioned to you kind of the Nationals field, and we'll give you that update here on the current standings. At the last time we talked to you, Middle Tennessee was the number 1 team in the country. That's still true. Now with a loss to South Carolina, though, that will certainly help the Gamecocks, who are right now number 7. And then you see USF just above them at number 6, followed up by Tampa at 14, and that is the top 16 set of teams. So you've got 4 in there. Clemson is going to be ineligible for nationals, but they are at 15. And then Florida Gulf Coast is at number 20. And Danny, you and I have talked about what does Florida Gulf Coast have to do to get in. I feel like they've done all they can at this point. They've always been on the cut line border for getting in, but without a conference tournament, and maybe they can still do it. Maybe they can go the distance and lock themselves in, but for an at-large bid, this might be just it for them. Very close, though, at number 20. And we mentioned to you the standings, and so you can go on the Instagram and the website at collegehockeysouth.com to see the full list of M3 standings there. Get your fill on where we are at heading into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. Well, ACDC also was set, and Florida has the number 1 seed, Jacksonville number 2. Embry-Riddle and Florida Tech are going to duke it out for the number 3 seed between them respectively. And then at 5, USF, and 6, Florida State. So, Danny, enough yapping of me. Why don't we turn it over to some of our game previews?
Indeed. Our game of the week, and this one I'm excited about because we don't give the AC/DC teams enough shine, in my opinion. And this one carries weight. The 3 and 4 seeds duking it out. Florida Tech traveling to the Daytona Ice Arena to take on the Ice Eagles of Embry-Riddle. Haven't had a Florida Tech game of the week yet this year, so I'm excited to see how they do. So we'll find out what that playoff bracket will look like by, I think so. If Embry-Riddle wins in regulation, then they're locked into the 3rd seed in that game of the week. If they win in regulation, they're number 3. They'll face Florida State. I believe Florida Tech would have to, since they're behind by 1 point, do that math in your head. I'm not prepared to do that right now. I apologize. If you want to do it, Devin, be my guest, but I don't have the mental capacity right now.
I'm good. I'm right there. I'm right there with you. I mean, full disclosure to the people listening, I'm kind of on fumes. It's been a long week, but we're still punching. And I feel like I gain momentum and gain energy talking about this. So if you're Florida Tech, do you almost want to play USF instead of Florida State? Because Florida State looked pretty good out there at the Savannah Classic.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, look, no one ever is going to lay down in a game. That's just not going to happen. At least so I would think. But at the same time, you know what? Like, I want to play the best teams. Forget that. You know what? Like, give me Florida State. I don't care. If I'm on the team, give me Florida State. So what? We'll beat him. But yeah, certainly a little bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing as a number 6 seed. But yeah, so that's our game of the week. I'm excited about that. Not excited about the 9:45 start time on Friday. Had a couple of late ones. Our 2 game of the weeks were not great for my bedtime. Anyways, moving along. Alabama against High Point on the women's side. They were previously scheduled, but I believe that was the ice storm, one of the several winter calamities that happened. They have that rescheduled. So nice little tune-up for Alabama before they try to repeat as conference champions. And then we move on to the battle for Boca, which it has such importance now after Lynn really gave the belt to Miami. Who knows? They could be on the cusp of getting into the playoff picture. They play FAU M3, who's had a up and down season, but I've looked at their scores from this semester, and you know what? They're not really getting stomped the way they were in the fall, and they definitely have the talent. Like Sam Watson's unbelievable. Peter Petito, oh my goodness, who's the other forward that does it, Devin?
Well, right now it's Peter
Drew
Petito.
Drew Renzi.
Oh well, yeah. I can't believe I've also sorry to Drew if you listen to this because I interviewed that guy and he's a locker room glue guy. You know what he did when they played Florida Southern? He sent me a text at like 1 a.m. and he's in all caps and it says, "We will not lose." And I think they're going to need that kind of energy against Lynn because right now, if you're the Fighting Knights, you have everything to play for with an FAU team that, let's be honest, they're not going to make playoffs. They're way too far out of the picture. But you're at home at Boca Ice Center, so who knows? That'll be
Get to play spoiler.
A fun one I'll be on the call for. You get to play spoiler. You get to do it against your rivals. And every time Lynn has a rivalry game, it leads to about 4 or 5 post-whistle scuffles. I'd have to expect we're going to see the same thing. So, if you want to see that, tune in to Owl TV on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, Kennesaw State and South Carolina, I think, has the lot of mustard, maybe the most mustard for me among M3 matchups here. If Kennesaw State comes in here and competes against South Carolina, do you anticipate them being more than, I guess, a first-round win possibly? Or, what can we expect out of this one?
Well, we talked about this. I mentioned it briefly with Christian Souza. Last year, Carolina went undefeated, super, super impressive. And the one team that I saw on their schedule that gave them a hard time was Kennesaw State. Like they were somehow able to break down the defensive walls that South Carolina put up. And then Kennesaw State gave them one of their first losses this year, one of their very few. So, and they've got momentum. They're playing good hockey. They've beaten up Georgia Tech a couple of times, which was, eyebrow raising.
I love this sentiment that I think Kennesaw State is a gritty team that, Christian Sousa, one of their leaders. They have the talent on the top end to do it. You just have to keep up with South Carolina long enough to make it a game. For, South Carolina, you do not want to have a slip up. Everything matters in momentum wise. So I feel like it's an important game regardless for them, even if they're solidified. And you still got to earn your way to nationals. You don't want to leave any outliers that could potentially bump you out of being the top 16 teams. M3 there, food for thought in this. Wow, are we really at the final week? We've got some games next week, Danny, but this really feels like kind of it for a lot of all intents and purposes.
We've got some games, so not this coming weekend, but the one after that will have regionals that will take center stage, obviously. But we've got some games outside of that don't have too much impact outside of just pride. I know there's a second Carolina and Clemson women's game, which I'm very excited to see. I might have a member of the Carolina women's team on the podcast next week, which will be fun to talk about. But yeah, we're rounding that corner, Devin. We really are. We're heading towards home.
And home being College Hockey South playoffs, again, February 26th through March 1st at the Panthers Ice Den, South Florida. It's right here, Danny. And I really hope we get a good turnout from the viewers. I think if you're a parent, supporter, anybody that listens to us, you're going to want to be there at least one of these days. It's going to be a great time. The connections you'll make are priceless. And I just think it's going to be good hockey. I think everybody can expect the M3 teams to battle. And to our understanding, I mean, it seems like that tournament is going to matter for rankings because the last rank is on March 1st. So you really have stuff to think about. And the best
Florida Gulf Coast, Devin. We talked about this, came up in a group chat. You mentioned last year they were in a pretty similar position, just outside of the field. And they were just done.
Right.
The season was over because they were an independent. Now, this year, they've got a chance to play teams that are in the top 16, whether it's Clemson or not. Clemson's not eligible. But there's five that we have in the top 16 that they can play and beat. That's huge. Hugely important. So Gulf Coast has to be licking their chops. They've got a second lease on life, find their way to nationals where they might be going with their M2 team.
It's probably the rarest thing you'll say, you want to play the best, but you really want to play a USF, a Middle Tennessee, a Tampa, and earn your way there. Just food for thought, and we've got a lot of it. And thank you all for listening with us. It's been such a fun ride up to this point. We're going to keep it going. This is the most important time, and we'll talk to y'all next week again. But for now, this has been episode 25 of College Hockey Mouth, the College Hockey South series, a sit-down with Luc Haggitt. For Danny Bohm, I'm Devin Serra. Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.